Hello and welcome. Today we're going to peel back the curtain on the Linux graphical user interface. You know, how all your clicks and windows actually show up on screen. We're going to get right into the big debate, X11 versus Wayland. So let's dive in and figure out what really makes your Linux desktop tick. You know, when most people think of Linux, this is probably what pops into their head, right? A blinking cursor on a black screen, just waiting for some cryptic command. And look, the command line is an incredibly powerful part of Linux, for sure. But for most of us today, that's really only half the story. The other half is a rich, modern, graphical world. So here's our game plan for today. We'll start by moving beyond that command line stereotype. Then we'll pop the hood and look at the GUI's engine room. After that, we'll meet the old guard, the X11 system, and then its challenger, Wayland. Then we'll talk about your desktop, your choice. And we'll wrap it all up with the big takeaway, ultimate modularity. All right, first things first, let's officially move past that whole command line only idea and talk about what a modern graphical interface really is in the world of Linux. So what is a GUI really? Well, it's just a fancy term for the system that lets you use your computer with a mouse, with windows, with icons, just like you would on Windows or a Mac. It's the friendly, visual front door to the absolute powerhouse that is the Linux operating system. But how does that front door actually work? I mean, what's going on behind the scenes? To get that, we need to pop the hood and take a look at the engine room. These are the core pieces that make everything you see on screen even possible. Okay, at the absolute heart of the Linux GUI is this critical piece of software called the display server. It's a term you hear thrown around a lot in Linux circles, but what does it actually do? The best way to think about a display server is as the ultimate middleman. It's constantly working. It takes input from your keyboard and your mouse, and it has to figure out which application needs to know about it. At the exact same time, it's taking all the pictures from your apps and making sure they get drawn correctly on your monitor. It's the central hub for literally all graphical activity. I love this analogy because it's just perfect. The display server is the air traffic controller for your desktop. It directs all the incoming and outgoing traffic, every click, every keystroke, and every single pixel that makes up your windows. And it makes sure nothing crashes. Now, working closely with the display server is the window manager. Its job is pretty much what it sounds like. It manages your windows. It draws the title bars, the borders, and it handles all the moving, resizing, and closing you do. Now hang on to this idea, because how this is handled is a huge difference between our two systems. In X11, it's a totally separate program, but in Wayland, its job is built right into the main component. Okay, with those ideas in our heads, let's talk about the original, the long-standing champion that has powered Linux desktops for decades, the X Window system, or as everyone calls it, X11. So the X11 world is built on 4 distinct, separate pieces. You've got the X11 server itself. That's our air traffic controller. Then you have the window manager, which we just talked about. The X client, that's just your app, like Firefox or a text editor. And finally, the desktop environment, which gives it all the look and feel. Now, having these separate was a revolutionary idea, but it also makes things a bit complicated. And because all these pieces are separate, things can get chatty. Let's just follow a single keystroke. The signal goes from the kernel to the X server. The server then has to figure out which application to send it to. That application then sends rendering instructions back to the server. The server then has to talk to the window manager or a compositor for any fancy effects. After all that back and forth, the server finally gets to draw the change on your screen. It's worked for years, but all those steps can create lag and even some security headaches. That complexity is the exact reason a new challenger showed up. To fix problems like screen tearing and to beef up security, developers basically started over to design a much simpler, more efficient system. And that system is Wayland. See the difference right away? We're down to just 3 main parts. And the huge change is the Wayland compositor. This one brilliant piece of software does the job of the display server, the window manager, and the compositor all in one. It keeps a perfect map of everything on your screen, called a scene graph, so it always knows exactly what's going on. Now this, right here, shows you everything. Remember that long, winding road our keystroke took in X11? Okay, now watch this. In Wayland, the kernel sends input straight to the compositor. The compositor sends it to the right app. The app draws itself and just tells the compositor, hey, this little piece of the screen has changed. The compositor then updates the screen. That's it. It is so much more direct. Fewer steps, less overhead. So to really sum it up, X11 is like a committee. You've got separate programs for the server, the window manager, and the compositor, and they all have to talk to each other constantly. Wayland, on the other hand, combines all those jobs into one efficient manager. And that fundamental difference in architecture is why Wayland is seen as so much more modern and efficient. It basically replaces a complicated conference call with a direct order. Okay, so we've been deep in the engine room, right? We've seen the battle between X11's complexity and Wayland's simplicity. But all of that technical stuff exists for one reason: to power the beautiful, interactive desktop that you actually use every day. So let's zoom out and look at that final crucial layer. We saw it on the charts for both X11 and Wayland, but what's its specific job in this whole setup? What's it for? The desktop environment is, well, it's the personality. It's the final layer of polish that you actually see and touch. We're talking about the start menu, the taskbar, the system icons, the wallpaper. It takes all that powerful technology we just talked about and bundles it up into a cohesive, friendly package with its own unique look and feel. And in the Linux world, choice is absolutely everything. You are not locked into a single look. This slide just shows a few of the big names. You've got GNOME and KDE, which are two of the most popular and full-featured environments out there. But then you have tons of others, like Cinnamon or Mate, and each one has its own philosophy for how a desktop should work. And this right here is probably the most amazing part about the Linux GUI. It's not just that you can pick a desktop when you install your system. No, you can have multiple desktops installed on the same computer at the same time. You could use GNOME on Monday and decide you want to try KDE on Tuesday. You just pick it from a little menu when you log in. It's incredible. So let's bring this all home. Let's focus on the single most important idea to take away from all of this. The key thing to remember is this: the Linux graphical user interface isn't a single product. It's not one monolithic thing. It's a stack of interchangeable building blocks. You choose your foundation, the classic X11 or the modern Wayland, and then, on top of that, you can place whichever desktop environment you want. That modularity gives you a level of control and customization that you just can't find anywhere else. And that really brings us to our final thought. You now know the pieces of the puzzle: the foundational display server and the user-facing desktop environment. Knowing that you can mix and match these parts to build something that is truly, uniquely yours, the only question left is, what does your perfect desktop look like?